Hey, this is Terry, TK Mobile Welder. Sorry I haven't been able to do many videos lately. I've been pretty busy, so I haven't had time to do anything outside of work. But I got a phone call from a customer with an opportunity to design and manufacture this frame. It's going to be a loading station and a unfolded box storage station. Basically what they're going to do is put a bunch of unfolded boxes on that top shelf so they're not running a lot of trips to get boxes, and they'll take product that comes off the metal detector conveyor and fold up a box and put the product in and send it on down. This video, building this frame, is going to be a lot of video time, so I broke it up into 4 separate videos. So after talking to the customer, I go ahead and sit down and make a bunch of drawings, and then finally get something figured out with a scratch pad, and then go ahead with this and put in my dimensions, come up with a way of how I'm going to build it, the sections that I'm going to build it in, how many different sub-assemblies I'm going to use, and just kind of get everything figured out and put on paper before I even cut anything up. This also helps me when I start with my cutting list. If you know how everything's going to go together, you can make your cutting list a lot easier, and you don't screw things up and start cutting metal that's going to end up short or long or in the scrap bin, which really tends to get expensive. So here's my cut list. You can see I've got everything set where I'm going to do my 45s, where they're going to be 90s, or maybe 45s and 90s, and my dimensions, everything's figured out right there. So on the day the material shows up, the first thing I like to do is go ahead and clean everything. It's really a lot easier to clean material when it's 20 feet long than it is to clean it after you cut it. That, and working with filthy, dirty metal is never really fun anyhow. And you are working with stainless steel, so it can scratch pretty easily. But if you go ahead and wash everything down and get it set up, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And even if this was just steel, I'd do the same thing. It's just a lot easier to work with clean metal. Your tape measure doesn't get filthy, so you can't see your graduations. It's just something I always like to do. The other thing you'll notice is that I'm wearing rubber gloves. Whenever I work with MEK, I just like to wear gloves. That's really kind of some nasty stuff on the hands, and one less thing to get in the bloodstream. So with the saw set up to 90 degrees, I go ahead and start making my cuts. I do all my straight cuts first, 90-degree cuts. I cut everything at 90, even the 45s. I'll cut those about 1/4 of an inch long and get everything cut at 90, and then I'll reset the saw and set everything at 45 and cut all my 45s at one time. The other reason I do this is I like to make sure that the weld seam on the square tubing is all facing the same way. Now you can see here I went ahead and labeled all my cutting parts. That way when you're looking at your assembly print and you need this part or that part, you're not running around checking each part, checking for the right size. You just go ahead and label everything there and then label it on the print, and you know you're grabbing the right part when you start doing your cutting at 45s or even your assembly. So here we got the saw set at 45 degrees, and I just do that with a protractor and get it set right. I had to set my roller up there because the parts are a little bit long. The nice thing about this frame is, since I designed it, I got to pick out the tolerances, and I can typically hold about 30, 45 at the most with this saw. It cuts really well. Once I get the parts in there, you can kind of see where I'm measuring from the back part there, and I measure to the end of the tube, and I subtract 12 inches every time, and when I do that, the parts come out right on the money. At least setting my tolerances at 45, I don't have to worry about machining the tubing, so it saves the customer some money. when I'm cutting my 45s, I go ahead and put an extra clamp on them. That way I don't have to worry about it moving. I measure twice and cut once, and we're ready to go.